Hi, John with Etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at Roadmaster's Comfort Ride leaf spring kit that we installed on our 2019 Grand Design Reflection. Today we got a real treat. I've got Don with me here, and they've got their beautiful 2019 Grand Design Reflection travel trailer. And Don, welcome to Etrailer. Thanks for choosing us.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about maybe your driving habits. How much do you drive? Are you happy with the trailer and the way that it rode?
Well, we put a fair amount of miles on a year, probably close to 10K, maybe more. The trailer has been riding a little rough, and I was always looking for something to keep the integrity of the inside together, without bouncing heavily down the road. So that's what kind of led me to where I am right now.
Gotcha. And just for a little bit of background, this trailer was equipped with Dexter D60s axles, and I'll also say that they weren't standard equalizer. They were the Dexter EasyFlex equalizer. So you already had an upgrade from what a lot of people have, which is standard equalizers.
Yeah.
But you still had issues with things flying out of cabinets or anything like that.
Yeah. The upgrade that I got, I mean, that it came that way. In terms of durability, it was very good. In terms of bouncing, it still needed a fair amount of help.
Sure.
So I've had luck with the springs and the equalizer itself, but I was looking for something more.
Gotcha. And since there's no way that they're ever going to have all the roads paved perfectly, you obviously were looking at different options. Why did you ultimately choose the slipper springs? And I'll say, before you even answer, that I think that you made a great choice. This, to me, is the best of both worlds, where you have outstanding performance without added maintenance of air ride. We know that air can leak down, or you need extra maintenance involved in that. But why did you choose the slipper springs?
Well, I'm looking for a lot of different things. One is a better ride, a more comfortable ride, a more stable ride. It also, for me, being on a fixed income, I'm looking for something that's cost effective.
Yeah.
And when I saw this at Etrailer and I saw the availability of installation, I knew it was right for me.
Great. I know that everybody that gets these is impressed with them, and I'm excited to have you here, because a lot of times we'll install all of these aftermarket parts onto either campers or motorhomes, and then they go down the road, and me, being a mechanic and also an enthusiast of aftermarket parts, this is cool to be able to have you here and go over our test course and actually get your reaction to it. So are you ready?
We're ready.
Let's get your reaction to this. We're going to take Don and this Grand Design over our test course. All right, Don, you ready?
Yes.
Let's see what we have.
Okay. Yeah, I can feel the difference. I can feel the truck still bouncing, but the trailer is more stable.
Yeah.
And these are really bumps too.
These are these were fashioned after some of the nicest potholes we've ever seen out on the interstates.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can just tell by the way the trailer is impacting the fifth wheel hitch. Between my airbags and the bumps being absorbed by the shocks and springs, there's a difference.
That's great. I mean, I could drive this and not really know. This is something that you know, you've already had set up. So we're under the camper right now. We're going to take a closer look at this kit and what you actually get with it. The shocks are going to be included, and then you have the center spring box. Now this slides over your center equalizer frame hanger. And you're also going to get the leaf spring kits. Now this kit is going to reuse your U-bolts that strap up to your axles, and you're going to reuse your eye bolts at either end for the springs. Now this particular kit will work for you if your axle ratings are anywhere from 5,200 pounds up to 7,000 pounds, and if your axle diameter, the tube diameter, is 3 inches. Now earlier I mentioned that this center spring box actually isolates each axle. And I wanted to show you just from a view from underneath here, you'll be able to see the leaf springs are locked in to each side of their box in between a roller and a wear pad, but they're not connected to each other. So the box is limiting the motion of your springs, but these are not connected, so you have independent movement. So if you hit a bump, this shock is going to register and slide, and this one won't right away. That's going to limit the transfer of motion, unlike a standard equalizer. Now this, on top of the fact that this kit comes with nitrogen charged gas shocks, is just another added benefit. The slipper springs by themselves are a great addition to your camper, but when you add the included gas shocks, you're not going to believe the ride difference. One more thing about the springs, over on the spring eyes, the bushings that are installed are premium bushings. These are molybdenum and graphite. These are super tough bushings that are going to give you years of trouble-free use. Now, as far as installation of the Roadmaster kit on your trailer, really the biggest challenge is going to be lifting your camper off the ground. You need to have these axles hanging because you are replacing your factory leaf spring suspension, the equalizer. So that's your biggest hurdle. Other than that, there's limited drilling for the slipper spring box, and everything else bolts right up. So if you want to see how we installed it on this camper today, stick around, we'll show you right now. Now to begin our installation, I'll give you a little bit of background as to what's going on here. We have our camper lifted up off the ground on either side. The axles are hanging. We're going to need to do this because the leaf springs on both sides are going to come off. So I've got some jack stands, and just to let you know, I've already got the other side about 80% complete right now. So we're just able to work on this side. We'll show you how to do it and everything I did on that other side. Now to begin with, we're going to take the U-bolts off of the leaf spring pack here. And remember, these axles are hanging right now. And the first thing we want to do is make sure these will actually come off. If they don't, if they're rusted on your camper, then you're going to have to cut them. So I always like to check this first. I've also got my floor jack supporting the axle right now so that as we loosen this, and I can slowly lower it down onto our jack stand. Looks like we're going to be in good shape on this axle. Now Roadmaster also recommends replacing your U-bolts. A lot of times if you're redoing your suspension, it's probably worn out anyway. So we have kits available here at Etrailer. A U-bolt kit is not included. The other reason you may need them is that your factory U-bolts may not be long enough for this new setup. So make sure and check the length. Make sure that you have enough length on your U-bolts. Now, if the U-bolt's out of the way, we can lower our axle down onto the jack stand. That's going to separate the axle from the leaf spring pack here. Now we can just unbolt our leaf springs. We're going to start over here on the equalizer side. Just separate these for right now. The shackles on the equalizer side, we won't be reusing these, but you may want to use them if they're in better shape than the spring hanger side. You can use these bolts on the spring hanger side as well. So I'm going to set these down and we'll get the other side of this spring loose. So I've got a socket on the other end of this bolt to keep it from spinning. I'm going to loosen this side. A lot of times you'll have to drive these out. This one is already loose, so we had some worn components here. Anyway, with this out of the way, we can get this spring pack off the axle. Now we're just going to repeat that same process to get this spring pack removed. With both spring packs removed, we can remove the equalizer. Same deal, this bolt is going to be splined on the back side. So we're just going to remove the nut. Now more than likely on this one, unless it's extremely worn, you're going to have to drive this one out. Now this center equalizer bolt, we won't be reusing this one. You're going to get a new one in your kit, but you still want to be careful driving this out. You don't want to bend the spring hanger or the equalizer hanger right here, but it's going to need to get pounded out here. Grab that and remove it. We're going to clean up all of this old grease at all of the spring hangers and just get this cleaned up for our install. The next thing we want to do is mount the spring box here, and it's going to go over the equalizer spring. But we got a couple of things on this trailer you may or may not have on yours. Our trailer has a disc brake conversion, so these are hydraulic brake lines. We need to move these out of the way. Secondly, and you probably will have this on your camper, this underlayment right here needs to be trimmed because the spring box needs to go up against the frame with nothing in between it. So I'm just going to use a razor knife here, and always want to be careful about what's above this bottom panel here when you're cutting. But for right now, we're going to just make one straight cut. I'm going to bend this tab out of the way here, and the same with the other side. In your kit, you're going to get a 9/16 bolt with a 2-inch pipe spacer and then a nylock nut on the other side. We're going to just kind of pin this box up here. I like to line up this spacer first. Because trying to do this and hold the box at the same time is a little cumbersome. All right, so we know that's going to work. Slide my brake lines out of the way and make sure the tabs go inside the box. And then before you slide the bolt through, grab one of the washers, the flat washers, run that through, and then there'll be another flat washer in your kit. Put that on the other side and then loosely install the nylock nut. Now your kit is going to come with 4 self-tapping screws, and we're going to need to drill 2 spots per side on this spring box. The other thing that you want to know is that when this is just hanging right here, you're going to have some play left and right. It's important that we keep the spring box parallel with the frame. So I'm going to use vice grips today and kind of get this set up. I'm just going to squeeze right at the end to hold our box in position, and then I can line up the back, and we want to make sure that it's straight. And I'll grab the other side. So here's a view from underneath, and I'm just going to mark right in the center on the front side of the camper, and the same on the back side back here. And you want to go right in the center just in case you need to make small adjustments. I'm going to use a center punch right here to make sure that we stay lined up in the middle. Then we can get these drilled out. Now these are the self-tapping screws that you're going to get in your kit. Now what you won't get is red Loctite, and you need to pick some of this up. We have it available here at Etrailer, or you can pick it up at an auto parts store. A lot of home stores have this. This is going to be used in more than one location here on this installation. For this one right now, to install these 4 self-tapping screws, we will be using it. And I'm going to start the screws with my drill, but We're going to go lightly once it gets started on there because we have torque specs in the instruction manual, and we'll be torquing these down in just a second. Now we can install the slipper springs. They're going to sit in the same location on the axle as the old springs. Now, when reinstalling your eye bolt, you want it nice and clean, especially on the threads. We're going to be applying red Loctite to these threads. I'm going to get some grease on this. And since it's greasable, and the owner would like to grease this with the tires on, we are going to install them from the inside out. Alright. So I'm going to start the nut on this side, but more than likely you're going to have to drive the bolt through so that the splines attach on the back side. Just showing you a shot from the inside here. We've got a 10mm socket that fits over the Zerk fitting, so we can drive this bolt in. I like to keep a wrench on the inside here to keep this bolt from spinning. I'm going to just gently start snugging this lock nut down. So I've got the flange nut tight on the back side. That's going to help the bolt from bouncing as we drive this in. It's important to drive the head of this bolt in to make sure that the bolt is seated correctly in the hanger. So we're just going to repeat this process until we get it all the way in. And once we get it driven in all the way, we're going to torque these to the specs. Now you can find the specs of the leaf spring hanger bolts or leaf spring bolts. It's going to be either online or in your owner's manual for your camper. Then we're just going to repeat the same process for the rear axle. We have our springs on, and we want to make sure that they're able to move up and down freely. And they are. So we're going to install the safety bolts here. In the kit, you'll get your 7/16 bolt with a pipe spacer and then the nylock nut. Now, a lot of times the powder coating gets pretty thick and these things don't want to go in, so I start them and kind of run them through with my drill. The spring will have to be above this when we run it through though. Make sure the pipe spacer goes in. Then we can start the bolt through. These aren't self-tapping, it's just from the manufacturing, the buildup of the paint just makes it a little bit difficult. Made it all the way through. It's in the right position. I'm just going to loosely put the nylock nut on. I'm going to do the same thing for the rear axle. Then we're going to torque these to the specs in the installation manual. Now once we have these two torqued, now we can torque what the manual will call the central bolt, the first one we put in to hang the slipper box up. Now we can install the wear pads. So again, you're going to have the larger bolt. The wear pads are going to sit on top of the spring here. And there should be a little bit of a gap between the spring and the wear plate right now. That's because the trailer is up in the air. So you're going to get a nylock nut for the back. There's no washers on this. So get that on. Get that torqued to the specs in the installation manual and repeat the same thing for the rear axle. Now it's time to attach the leaf spring pack to the axles. On the spring seat, you're going to have an alignment hole and you're going to have a pin on the bottom. And all of these need to line up, so this needs to sit flush on it. Now on the axle, it's going to go like that. I'm going to use the floor jack to kind of position this. The other side is loose right now. But I've got the spring pack on just so we can make sure that everything's gonna go where it's supposed to. Okay, so the bottom's on. So this is the tie plate that comes in your kit. This is gonna sit on top of the spring pack. These are side specific. So when we go to set this on the spring, we want the shock mount here to be facing towards the inside. The shocks are going to be mounted on the inside of this slipper box here, and they're going to come down in a V pattern here. So this is the way that it's going to go on. The center hole is going to go over the alignment pin. Now I've painted this alignment pin bright yellow because once we get the U-bolts on here, you can see there's a little bit of movement, and that's enough to throw the alignment off on your axles and cause excess of tire wear. What we want to do is when we put the U-bolts on and the tie plate on top of this as well, we want the alignment pin to be on the back side back here, and we want the same thing on all 4 positions on these axles, because if one is out, then the alignment's going to be off on the trailer. Now we'll put on our new U-bolts. Now these U-bolts are long enough that we can use the tie plate that came in the kit as well, and this is just going to provide additional stiffening of the suspension here. This is a good thing. So this is yet another reason why we kind of recommend going with the new U-bolts. Okay, once we have the tie plates on this side, you want to do the same thing on the other side. Now we're done over there, but it's still loose. What we want to do right now is make sure that the alignment pin is positioned correctly. And then we're going to torque these down to the specifications that are in the instruction manuals. Now we can repeat this same process for the rear axle. Now if you like our situation today and you have any other modifications that you needed to do, now is a good time to do it. I'm going to reattach our brake line assembly right now. Now that all of our brake lines are secured, the next step is going to be to reinstall our wheels and tires and set the trailer on the ground so that the weight of the camper is on the axles. That way we can install our shocks at the correct height. So we're under the trailer right now and we're looking at the passenger side slipper spring box. And the general plan here to get these shocks installed is we have an extension plate that came with the kit that's going to get bolted here to the tie plate. And then the shocks are going to get, bottom of the shock, it's going to get bolted to that. And the top of the shock is going to get bolted up here to the slipper spring box. On these extension plates, you'll notice that one hole is further away from all the other holes. So that's going to be where the bottom of the shock bolts up to. Now on these Grand Designs, you have some different options as far as adjusting. So just on your particular trailer, you may want to see where the shock comes to. On most of the ones that we've worked on, it is always we need the longest extension for the shock bracket. That means using the top 2 holes here. And in your kit, you're going to get these 2 bolts and nylock nuts. There's no washers on these, so we're just going to get these mounted up. Using a 3/4 inch socket and wrench. In order to install the shock onto the spring box, we're going to take the longer 4-inch bolts here and a flat washer. That's going to go on the outside. And then we can take another flat washer and then a spacer. Then you're going to take one of the wedge washers, and then that's it for the outside. We're going to put that up on the spring box here. On the inside, we're going to take another wedge washer, and then a flat washer, and then a nylock nut. Now the wedge washers, we need to tighten this nylock nut down on the top just enough to where the wedge washers aren't going to move. This shock is going to be at a kind of an angle pulling out from the box. So the wedge washer on the outside of the box here, you want this flat end, the larger end, to face towards the bottom of the shock like this, and the thinner end up on top. On the inside of the box with the other wedge washer, you want it to be the exact opposite. You want the thin point pointing towards the bottom of the shock and the larger section up on top. What that's going to do is create a flat surface for this shock to bolt up against. Now for the bottom of the shock, we're going to need to compress our shock up a little bit. We're going to start with the bolt and a flat washer coming in from the tire side, and I'm going to push up with my palm. And on the inside, before the shock goes on, we're going to have a spacer and a flat washer. So this can get... I'm going to bring the shock around here and push up with my palm. Run the bolt through, finish with another flat washer, and then the nylock nut. And once everything is in position, we can snug up the hardware and torque it to the specs that's in the installation manual. Once you get the top and the bottom of the shock torqued, you can just peel the band off and then just repeat this same process for the front axle. And once you have the shocks mounted on both sides and torqued down, the last step would just be to come in and torque your lug nuts on the wheels, and that'll complete your installation. That was a look at some of the features and the installation of Roadmaster's Comfort Ride Leaf Spring Kit on our 2019 Grand Design Reflection.